Okay, so in this video we will be reviewing, or discussing I guess, because calling these things reviews is a little bit bold, but we will be discussing Words of Radiance, which is obviously the second book in the Stormlight Archive. And spoiler alert, this is shocking stuff, but this book is really good. Like, fantastically good. It's Brandon Sanderson at Stormlight Archive, and what were you expecting? Okay, so yeah, now that we've got that out of the way. So now, just bear in mind, like I said, this is a good book, so all the stuff I'm saying, any criticism I give is more nitpicky than, meant to be, don't read this book, it's trash. It's more just this is a good book, but these are, some of the flaws it had. So, obviously, this book I feel like it's a little bit slower than the last book, than Way of Kings, and that's to be expected because your main character is no longer or one of your main characters, Kaladin, is no longer in, frequent danger, every chapter, right? So obviously the pace is going to slow down a bit, because if I'm, risking death every chapter, then, you can't really maintain that for an entire, multiple thousand-page series, so that, that's fine. But yeah, so it does read a little bit slower than previous Stormlight books, and also the big criticism I have of this is I just don't like Shalon. She just sort of rubs me the wrong way, and so when we're sort of exploring Shalon's backstory, which I assume is supposed to be, interesting, well, obviously supposed to be interesting, but also supposed to be introspective and revelatory, you're supposed to, you learn stuff about this character, but the problem is I didn't really care, because I didn't really like her, and so it sort of fell a bit flat for me. It's not to say it is bad. In fact, a good friend of mine has disagreed with me massively on this topic, so you may well enjoy it. Just for me, I didn't really like her character. Not that she's a bad character, not she's written badly or anything, I literally just didn't like her as a person. And so I just sort of had a bit of the old, cool story bro with some of the stuff she was doing, or that had happened to her in her past. 'Cause I'm like, I don't really care that bad stuff happened to you because I don't like you. Which, maybe you say, Michael, that's a very immoral stance to have, and what, sue me. Yeah, so that was, I didn't like that. And yeah, the plot runs a little bit slower. Stuff takes a bit longer to happen over the course of this book, but there is still some really cool stuff. So the two big, because the way, in fact I might even make a video about this, the way Brandon Sanderson structures a lot of his books is he has this I'm not even sure what the name of the structure would be, but basically he just has two big action scenes, normally one towards the middle of the book, and then one at the end of the book. So in this one, your two action scenes are a very cool duel, it wasn't duel is the wrong word, because duel implies 1v1. A very cool, just, massive scrap in the ring with shard blades and stuff in the middle, with Kaladin and stuff, and that's really cool. Fantastic. And because I've read this book before, I know it was coming, and I can tell you how good it was, because I was literally getting excited. I'm, waiting, I'm oh yeah, it's coming, I know what's going to happen, and, even the second time around, I was like, yes, this is good. So, obviously, that's a very cool action scene. And then at the end, we have this big battle with the Parshendi, where they, do some Everstorm summoning and general cuckery. And that's also a really cool action scene. And once again, I was like, oh, I know where we're going. This is cool. I can't wait for this to happen. Which indicates to me that it's not just a sort of action scene where... Because, let me tell you, if I'm watching Pacific Rim for the, second time, I'm not like, oh my god, I can't wait for the robots to punch each other. Because, once you've seen it once, you're like, you might not hate watching it again, but you're not exactly getting excited, you know what I mean? You're not, jumping around the room like, oh my god, the robots. Whereas, so I think that shows that these action scenes are a little bit more powerful and a little bit more, stick with you a little bit more, because I was actually excited, to get to him. I was, pumped. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for this, So I think that shows that Brandon Sanderson, the way he writes action is, it's not just, mindless action. It's, it has, weight to it, and it means something to the story as a whole, which is how it's supposed to be, right, But also it is just interesting action, cool stuff, your descriptions are good, everything's prose is nice, it's all good, but it's more than just good action, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So that's nice. It's nice having, seeing the relationship between Kaladin and Adolin develop. I really enjoy that dynamic. Because I like both their characters, but you can also see why they would dislike each other, at least initially. So that's interesting. I mean, of course, showing up of a character from Warbreaker is cool, in the form of our boy, the Swordmaster. And then, yeah, the action scenes with, with Zeph, Sun, Volano, Truthless, blah, 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 blah. The action scenes with him are, quite cool. It's enjoyable seeing Kaladin, use some of his powers. Because, we all knew he was going to have them, but it's enjoyable seeing them be used and seeing how he learns them and stuff. So that's quite interesting. What I didn't like... So, one part of this book that I did not like at all was... perhaps I'll make a whole video on this because it's a very controversial topic. But I did not like how Syl... basically just spazzes out. So she gets to just basically be Kaladin's moral arbiter because she's like, they have a bond, and all that Kaladin can do, all his powers come from his bond with Syl, right? And then he does like one thing that Syl doesn't like, even though he's like killed, hundreds of Parshendi at this point, basically, right? Just full on murdered them with a spear. She's all good with that, right? But the second he does something that like she morally disagrees with, even though you could argue that it's morally right, and I'm talking about being okay with assassinating the king. He doesn't even do it. He's just okay with letting it happen. And then Syl's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm leaving you, and I'm gonna like go spaz out and become like a spastic windspren." And it's just like, it's just kind of weird and judgy, and it makes me not like Syl's character because you're like, she just gets to decide Kaladin's morality for him, and he's just gonna be like her little bitch and be like, "Okay, I'm sorry, Syl. I need my powers, so therefore you get to decide." You get to decide what I think about this. When naturally it looked like he was making a decision, and it's not a wrong decision. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I'm not a fan of that. And then she's all like, "Oh, I'm an honest friend. I don't like breaking oaths and stuff." And then Kaladin just full on breaks his oath with Moash. The whole Bridge 4 thing. And then she's like, "Oh, that's all good, because I just get to decide." So that annoyed me. What other stuff? Obviously Dalinar is a fantastic character in this book. Dalinar is probably the best character that Brandon Sanderson's ever written, so he's good. He shines in this book. So there you go. Stormlight Archive Book 2, very nice, solid book. Perhaps not as good as the first one, but I don't think any book that Brandon Sanderson's ever written is as good as the first one. So there you go. Yeah, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.